Before you watch this video, you probably want to know that I actually recorded it at the beginning of September. Today's the 11th of November, so I have completely forgotten about this, and I finally just found it now and thought, oh yeah, I was going to do that. And since I haven't uploaded in quite a while, I thought I might as well. I have finished all of my exams now, and I've been recording a bit of Air Tycoon 4, so you can look forward to that later, and I might do some fleet histories or whatever. But anyway, this might have some, or in fact I know of a few, it has some things which are out of date in it. So I say, oh, this is one of the liveries, I'm going to get a plane of this. And then I've already done that. And yeah, there's a couple of other things as well which I say, so just be aware of that. But other than that, watch the video to see what my top 20 airline liveries are, because I actually have been going through these to get the pictures for them and editing the video itself, and I still agree with every single one of these, so yeah, enjoy the video. Hello everybody and welcome to another video. In this video it's going to be another review, and I'm going to be doing my top 20 airline liveries, simply because one, I haven't done a review in a while, and two, I basically haven't been doing quite a lot of videos in a while, so I am going to be doing an update on that later on. But for now, let's just get into what my top 20 airline liveries are. Just a few things before I start. This doesn't include any special airline liveries. So, for example, Icelandair's Hekla Aurora scheme or anything like that. These are simply bog standard airline liveries that have been put in place. They don't have to be ones that are current now. They also include some older ones, especially as we go down the list, you'll start to see much older ones. But apart from that, yeah, these are my top 20 airline liveries. In 20th place, El Al's current livery. This one is simple yet elegant, and in my mind is the best kind of Euro-white scheme, because there are quite a lot of Euro-white schemes that are still current now and were released throughout the ages, but this is the one which has been done best, in my opinion, especially on the 787 and 747 as well. It's just they've got the blue of the Israeli flag, and they've also added a little bit of silver in there. They've also included that onto the text as well. I think it's massively elegant, and yeah, just the best Euro-white livery in the world. In 19th place, Qantas's new livery. Now this is it's the first example, but it's not the best example, of retouching a well-known brand, because Qantas, they saw that they had a very, very recognisable livery with a kangaroo on the tail and a red band going across the tail and the rear of the aircraft. They've had that for years and years and years, and they just went, right, how can we add a modern twist to this? They had 787s incoming, so they're like, how can we add a modern twist to this? And they simplified the rule a bit more. They made it more streamlined. They also added a little bit of silver along the back as well, and they also added some new titles. The only reason why this livery is further down the list is simply because the text, I don't really like the Q. I don't know what it is about it, to be honest. I think just because it looks circular and there's only a little bit, and it's just it doesn't look like a cube properly to me. I don't know why. To some people it might do, but not for me. So it kind of slipped down the list in that respect. But other than that, well done. In 18th place, Vietnam Airlines' current livery. Now this is probably one of the best examples of color palette swapping thing and kind of updating the livery a bit more, because Vietnam Airlines, they had a quite recognizable livery, I would say, but it was kind of more this teal bluish color, and I don't know if it was actually meant to be teal, but I guess as the planes flew further, it actually got it looked more green, but then they also just had this grey underneath, and it didn't really look that good. And then to become more professional, they came out with a new livery, which is a lot better, and it has become a lot more professional, and they changed out the grey for the white. They had a gold strip down there, and they did a similar thing that KLM did. They kind of made the livery bits swirl a bit more, and they upsized the size of the logo. I think it's the best color palette swap that's been done. So I mean, they made it a little bit more blue. They reduced the amount of greens. It's not quite teal anymore. It's a lot more blue. So yeah, well done. I don't know what to say, really. In 17th place, Thai Airways International's current livery. Now this embodies an airline of luxury, really, because it brings in royal colours. It's royal colours brought onto an aircraft, because before they had this livery, which was alright, but I don't know, like by the noughties when it was still being used, I didn't really like it. It kind of looked out of place. But then they brought in this, which I was surprised to find out actually came out in 2005, which for the time was incredibly modern. I didn't realise that, and it still looks modern now. But I mean, apart from the text, which I will say looks small, too small on some other aircraft, apart from like the A380 and 747, that's kind of why it's dropped down on the list. But apart from that, it looks incredibly royal, because it's got the royal colours, like gold and purple, very royal colours, and embodies an airline of luxury, so don't know if that's what they were going to come across with that, but it has certainly come across with that with me. In 16th place, Air Malta's current livery. Now this is an incredibly colourful and vibrant livery. It's probably going to be the most vibrant on this list because more of the liveries they tend to be a lot more professional than this. This is probably going to be as vibrant as it gets. But this livery is incredible. I mean, this was Air Malta's old livery, which I didn't even know about. That looks it's pretty bad. But this livery is incredible. And I didn't quite realise that the reason why it's on this list and it's further up than some of the other liveries is because I didn't quite realise just how detailed that back was. I mean, it looks detailed enough anyway. I was like, oh, it's quite red. But then I saw it actually has some kind of like red patterns, sort of like swirly patterns on the red, and it's got a tint of green as well underneath the tailplane, which I didn't quite realise, and the way that the yellow, like a bit like one half of it's yellow and the other half's orange, and like the way that blue works. The more I looked at it, the more I found, and that's why it's on this list really. There's also got some text on there, which says the airline of the Maltese Islands, and I didn't even realise that was on there. So, yeah, putting incredible detail on it, and the more I looked, the more I found, so that's why this livery's on this list. In 15th place, Continental Airlines' Meatball livery. Now, this is one which, in itself, is alright. I kind of like the gold on it, and I like the orange stripe, but the reason why it's on this list is more to do with the fact that it completely stood out from the rest. Like the gold and the orange completely set it apart. Just to give you an example, when it was in operation, this was Delta's livery, this was American's livery, this was Northwest's livery, and I'm trying to think of some other airlines and I can't really think. US Air, yeah, they were going at the time, that was their livery. I guess the only contender was kind of PSA, but then they went out of business, they became US Air. So this was just, it completely stood out from the rest with Continental, which is why it's on this list so high. In fact, no, yeah, United, I've just realised. Yeah, I guess that's the only real contender for it, but the gold definitely stood out from the rest. It completely stood out from the rest. I mean, today, if it was going today, it would be alright, but I don't know, I'm not really a fan of it today, but in terms of when it was actually out, it was incredible, and I really, really like what they've done with that bringing in the gold. I mean, what other airline before that had gold in its livery in America? Like what airline? I can't really think. I mean, I'll probably find out when I'm actually putting this video together, or if not, you'll tell me in the comments. But I can't really think of one that had the gold, and it's got that orange stripe, and for some reason it just goes so well. And I like the fact that it's called the meatball scheme. I thought it was because it was like red and like meatball pasta, but it wasn't. It was because of the logo, but yeah, I don't know about that really. But yeah, the livery's great, stood out from the rest, and stuff. In 14th place, Asiana Airlines' current livery. This is another vibrant livery, but unlike the Air Malta scheme, it's actually a lot more professional, probably because it's got darker colours. Like, the only hint of being quite vibrant is the fact it's got some yellow on it. But, I mean, I don't know, this I wasn't really considering, and then I looked at it and I thought, yeah, like, almost similar to the Air Malta thing. The more I looked at the tail, the more that I saw that was on there. I didn't quite realise that there was grey at the front of all the colours, and then it swooped back all the way to the grey at the top. I know that there was like the red and the blue and the yellow, which look quite nice in itself, and it almost looks like a flower in like the way that it is, like sort of like each colour. It's like a petal, if you know what I mean. And for some reason, that's just quite professional. Also added with the fact that the fuselage is painted grey. The only thing I will say is I like how they put a logo at the front, but the text just is way too small. I mean, on a plane like the A380, it's just way too small. But I don't know, considering that this was also their last livery, this here, which you can make your mind up about that one. You can probably tell why it's very bad. But this is quite professional livery. One of the, I believe, I'm just thinking, is this the only Asian livery I have on here? Oh no, there is, in fact, oh yeah, there is one more. But in fact, no, that's Middle Eastern. Give you a little bit of a hint there. So yeah, this is the best, at least East Asian livery on this list, and thoroughly well deserved. In 13th place, British Airways' Chatham Historic Dockyard livery. Now, this one probably represents a flag carrier perfectly, and the best on this list. I mean, there is a few more liveries which I talk about, like the flag and how that's implemented in the livery, but in my opinion, this is the best way that it was done. Because considering that this was the last liveries that I had, like the Landor scheme, the Negus and Negus scheme, it had a flag at the back, and it was almost a modern version of it. I mean, they had the World Tail scheme, which is whatever they were doing there, but yeah, anyway. This I really like. I really like the tail design that they've got there. It looks like a waving Union Jack. They've also got their nice ribbon. It represents the flag carrier perfectly, considering it's meant to be a British airline. It's got the red, white, and blue. It's kind of a nice balance because it's got a little bit of blue on the tail, but that's mostly red. It's got a white fuselage, and then blue engines and a blue underneath. So it's a right amount. Like, the only thing I will say is that the red is slightly less than everything else. But still, it's quite nice, nicely balanced livery. And also on the newer, they've actually brought out a newer livery, if you don't know. But what they did on that is they actually added their coat of arms that they used to have on the Landor scheme, and they put that alongside the text. And I think that just adds a much nicer touch to it than it did before. But yeah, the best flag carrier livery that is trying to represent the flag. In 12th place, American Airlines' current livery. Now, kind of similar to with British Airways, but with American Airlines, it's kind of a different story because this was their old livery, which they had for years and years and years and years. And when it came out, I was like, yeah, that was kind of all right. But even after a few years, in my opinion, it got very, very outdated. And the fact that it lasted as long as it did really surprised me. Because in my opinion, it doesn't really look good on some of their aircraft. But when they brought out this livery, but I didn't actually know about it until a few years afterwards, as when I was first getting into aviation, and I found this livery, and I was thinking, yeah, that's the best way that they could have actually combined their brand name and the livery together, because it's American. And what did they do for their new livery? They stuck a giant American flag on the tail, which I think has been implemented very, very well. Also, they combined grey, that nice professional grey. Their logo I'm not too sure about. I don't know what they really did with it, but they've got nice text on the front, which could be a little bit lighter, darker in my opinion, because it's too light. But apart from that, best, like, combining, like, what they try to combine the name with the livery. But the best version of that, I guess. Kind of going back on number 13, but we'll skip that. In 11th place, Air Belgium's current livery. This is a incredible example of turning a flag into a brand. I know the last few liveries have been all to do with flags and the airline, but I mean, the national carrier of Belgium, like since the demise of Sabina, was Brussels Airlines, and it's not really a flag carrier. It was never designed to be one. It was just a regional carrier, and it's grown in a few years, but that's not really representing the country. With Air Belgium, when they started up, because they're quite a new airline, when they got their A340s, they literally just slapped the flag on the livery as the brand, and they swirled it right across the fuselage, and then they also added a little bit of it on the tail as well, which looks quite nice. I also like the logo as well, which is kind of a rendition of KLM's logo, where it's got, like, it says like AB, and then it's got a little crown on top, because of the Belgians, they have a monarchy, I should think, probably. Considering that's there, I'd imagine they do. And they also brought in, something which I'm going to talk about later, the mask. On the front of the plane, which is a new thing which a certain airline brought in, which I won't talk about because it's on this list later, maybe. But other than that, this airline's actually on my bucket list to fly on, and also they're coming out with a model of it, which I'm excited to get. So, well, I haven't got it yet, but when I do, you'll see. In 10th place, Air New Zealand's 2 liveries. Now, this is the only example where it's kind of technically part of their livery, because, I said the thing where it's not special airline liveries. They have 2 liveries, but one's the kind of main livery, and then they have another one which is on quite a few aircraft, so it's technically a special livery, but also technically part of their livery as well. But the reason why it's on this list is basically because of that. Because they decided to go for 2 liveries instead of 1, which in itself was quite experimental. Not a lot of airlines said that. I mean, of course, you had the British Airways, which tried to paint every single aircraft differently, and that went horribly. But with this, they decided to go for a kind of different style of livery. I think that it was a much better livery than their previous Pacific Wave scheme, because that kind of made the carrier look like it was one of like a Pacific Island carrier, and it wasn't an Air New Zealand carrier. An Air New Zealand carrier, yes, a New Zealand carrier. But now with this new livery, it looks incredibly professional. They also used it to represent the country's most famous export, which is One, with the all black scheme, which is the name of the one where they have quite a few of their aircraft in the black, with like just this completely black, and then other ones they have white at the front. But the one that's just completely black, that is representing its national rugby team, which they do like that. Aren't they called the All Blacks? And they have like that special dancing which they do at the start, something like that. So representing that, and also the fact they've got the fern as well, which I believe is their national plant. The only thing which could be improved if they wanted to do more national exports is to put a kiwi on it, but I don't really know how they would really implement that, to be honest. But I don't know. Apart from that, they've also done a quite nice scheme on their main livery, where they have white at the front, so the black trails down, and I don't know, it looks like it's been dipped in oil or something. And the other ones, it's also got the fern. It's actually like two different designs of fern on the main livery. It's slightly different than the one on the All Blacks livery, which is slightly different, and they also have another one. But yeah, it's good job, Air New Zealand. In 9th place, BMI's last livery. I was actually really surprised. I mean, similar to the Thai Airways livery, I was actually really surprised that BMI came out with this livery in 2001. This livery came out in 2001, and if it came out today, I would think that it was an incredibly modern livery. Even today, I mean, BMI Regional, or flybmi as they're known as now, you still use that livery, and it looks incredibly professional. And this came out in 2001, so it's the most modern livery for its time. That's why it's high up on this list. And also, for some reason, recently I've got really into BMI and finding all about them. And I don't know, it's really interesting me the fact that they were basically Britain's second airline, because Virgin were more just of a leisure carrier, and now they're the second airline. But I liked how they were the second airline. They offered much more sort of regional and European services. But yeah, they had a very, very professional livery. So similar to British Airways, they combined red, white, and blue as a flag, but they decided to bring in more blue. I also didn't notice for a while, but I notice now, that they actually have a Union Jack on the tail, if you can see slightly. So on the light blue at the bottom and the dark blue at the top, they've also got that. And I like what they've done with the text as well, like the billboard text. It's all curved, and it's got like different shades of blue. It starts off light blue, then it goes darker, and it's just and like the red on the engines as well. There's just so much that's good about this livery, considering it also came out in 2001. Incredible livery. In 8th place, Virgin Atlantic's current livery. This is simple yet professional for a livery, really. I mean, it's only got two colours, really. It's got the grey and the red, but it's been done really well. Like, the red is nice and dark, and that looks quite professional, and they've also got grey on the fuselage, which I've realised is on quite a lot of these liveries, and it's why that's professional. And also the text is almost similar to BMI, where it's all curved, and it's this billboard text, and it all just curves nicely, and yeah, it's just an incredible livery, and one that's highly professional, that is flying today. In 7th place, Hawaiian Airlines' new livery. Hawaiian basically went and said they had their livery, which they had since 2001. Again, quite a modern livery for its time. Not as much as BMI though, but definitely in America it's quite modern. And they had that livery since 2001, and they essentially went. I think this came out in 2017. They went, how can we add to this livery? Like, we have a successful livery, how do we add to it? How do we make it better? And they added these leaves and flowers all across the fuselage in silver. And somehow that just made the livery complete. I don't know how we even lived before with it, the fuselage being so bare and just white, and just it had like the woman and the flowers at the back. And I didn't actually realise, but they also changed that as well. They edited that, and then they brought all of the leaves across the fuselage as well in grey. It just looks amazing. It just turns it in. It just adds something to it. I don't quite know how to describe it. It makes it more appealing. It makes the aircraft more of an advertisement for Hawaii, and go, look, this is the kind of thing that you'll see here. I guess, I don't know. I don't know. A lot of these liveries I'm trying to describe, I'm just throwing words in the air, seeing if they actually work. But yeah, Hawaiian Airlines' new livery. Incredible, adding to an already successful livery, something which I think I said before, yes I did, and will definitely continue down this list. In 6th place, Gulf Air's new livery. This livery, in my mind, is the first example of going from ugly to beautiful, and the most recent example, because, in my opinion, I never liked their previous livery. The one where they had gold at the front and that blue stripe, and also on the engines they had blue with a tint of gold. That just looked weird. I didn't like that at all. I just hated that. I don't know. I think it was way too much gold. Gold shouldn't really be used lots. It should only be used sparingly, and you have just a little bit of gold just to add a little extra touch to it, a bit like the silver. You can't have too much, otherwise it'll just wash out the whole livery, and that's kind of what happened with their old livery. Then they brought in their new livery, which I didn't actually know about until they got their 787, and it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. For a start, the engines, they're now gold. Like they really scaled back on the gold. They edited their eagle logo as well, and they added sort of like this sandy beige color lined with gold on the tail, which looks nice. The text as well, it looks black from a distance, so when you get closer to it, it's all vibrant and it's got all these sorts of things in it. It's incredible. I think that I'm going to have some sort of thing where I say what's the best livery that came out that year. Last year, it was a certain livery, which I'll get into later. This year, it's definitely been this livery, unless there is another airline which improves their livery better than this. But this is an incredible livery, going from ugly to beautiful. In 5th place, Air Canada's new livery. About as controversial as this list gets, really. Yeah, like I seem to be the only one that likes this livery and everybody else hates it. I don't know really, but just how it is. I mean, with like the Gulfair livery, their old livery, everybody seemed to love, but I hate. So this is kind of the opposite of it, really. But their new livery, I really like, simply because, for starters, they completely revived their old branding. Their old branding used to have black in it, so this was their livery they had from 1994 to 2005, if I've got that right. So it had a black tail and it was a white fuselage. It also brought back the roundel with the maple leaf in, which looks quite nice. And the new thing which they've done is they've added a mask on the nose and over the cockpit glass. That makes the livery just 10 million times better, and I don't know why. I just love that kind of thing, because on the A350, that was when it was first implemented. It was first implemented on the A350, and I don't know, I didn't really think of it as a mask, because at first I thought it was actually the cockpit. It was just like, because it was made out of carbon fibre or something, I didn't know, and then I found out that they actually just painted it like that. Air Canada was the first airline to actually bring in the mask into the airline industry. Not just on the A350, but as an actual part of the livery, and it looks incredible. It combines old branding with experimentation, which looks incredible. The black, it's far enough down, unlike British Airways livery, which is blue. That just is too high, especially on the A320s. It's just all over the place. The blue goes all over the place. On the A320s, it's too high, but on the 787s, it looks good. On the Air Canada livery, every single plane, the blacks, there's not much black. There's enough there. They changed the engines to black as well, and they've got a black tail. And with their old livery, again, like the Gulfair livery, I seem to be the only one that doesn't like it. I didn't like it at all. It just looked weird. I didn't like the way that the leaf worked. It looked like that it was merging through some sort of black hole. It was sinking into this black hole. I just didn't like what was done with it. And it was just a grey fuselage, which is all right for professionalism, but not on just a livery which just has that leaf at the back. But this livery adds a lot more, adds that mask with old branding. It's incredible. In 4th place, BOAC's Speedbird scheme. And this is where all the old liveries come out. I know, I'm very well aware I did say an old livery before and I forgot to mention it, which was the Continental one, but oh well. But anyway, this is, in my opinion, just the best livery of the 1960s by far. I know that's a controversial claim to put out there, but it's just my opinion. That's what I think of it. It's just incredible. It was really, unless if you can give me another example in the comments, or if I find out later, but I don't think there is. This is the first example of bringing gold into a livery. The first example. I mean, now, if an airline wants to add luxury or professionalism, like I've touched upon earlier, like Thai Airways and Gulfair, if they want to become more professional and act like luxury, that they have in luxury, they will add gold. And BOAC brought in gold. And this livery, it's actually, they had a bunch of liveries before, and they also had one that had Cunard titles as well, but I don't really like that because it looks like there's just too much on the nose. But the livery, essentially with the light kind of bluish grey underneath, a small white top, that blue tail with the gold Speedbird logo, the gold BOAC titles, and the way the cheat line just trails down to the nose and curves under the nose. It's just incredible. The best livery of the 1960s, and possibly one of the only liveries on this list, and I can think of the next one, which I'm doing. This is one of the only liveries which features minimal amounts of white. I mean, I don't really like the 747 that was featured with this livery. The 747 just looks worse, simply because there's a lot more white on it, and it doesn't actually go over the windows. Although it does go over the windows, but it doesn't actually go over the cockpit because the 747 has a lot higher cockpit, and it's on the second deck. But with this, it's incredible. Like the VC10 and the 707 it looks best on, especially the VC10. They've tried to do this special livery for it, but this livery was miles better in my opinion, and as I said, the best livery of the 1960s. In third place, Aerolíneas Argentinas, if I say that right, their new livery. This is the best example, in my opinion, of going from bland to beautiful, and the most successful implementation of that. There's a bunch of airline liveries in the industry that are still there now and have been, like Garuda's livery, which they then changed out for this, which is quite nice, but wasn't good enough to put on this list, and PAL's livery, which is just why do people think that's beautiful? I have no idea. But yeah, this was Aerolíneas Argentinas' old livery. It was like they had two schemes, and I can't really pinpoint which one came first. There was one that looked like similar to Iberia's old scheme, and then this one, which was just a blue tail and blue engines, and it was incredibly bland. Then they came out with this livery, which at first I was like, oh yeah, that's quite a cool livery. Then I found out that this is the best implementation of a logo into the livery, because in any other livery, they basically just slap the logo on the tail or just on the fuselage. This, I didn't actually probably realise this, but you know that white stripes you can see on the tail? It looks best on the 737 in my opinion. Those white bits on the tail, it's the actual logo, their crane logo, which they have. And I didn't realise that until a few weeks ago, and I was like, oh my god, like when I was putting this list together, I was like, that has to go up so far simply for that, and also it's got the blue, and it's just, oh my god. This livery is absolutely incredible, and yeah, it's definitely the best South American livery by far. I mean, I used to think Avianca's livery was good, but until I found out about the crane thing on the tail and the way that was implemented, when I found out that, I was like, no, this is miles better, and especially considering that this is the old livery, it's incredible. In second place, KLM's Dolphin Smile livery. I don't think this is actually the official name for it, but I found out that a designer actually calls it that, who designed the livery. And in my opinion, this is the best livery which is flying now. Considering that the next livery is an old livery, which, kind of might give it away. But this is the best livery which is flying now, in my opinion. It looks... On some aircraft, I will say it doesn't look great. On the 777, it looks a bit straight, so it kind of curves out at the front, and then it's straight for radius because it's so long, and then it curves at the back. But on an aircraft like the Embraers and the Fokkers as well, it looks amazing. I mean, similar to what Qantas did, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And all they really did was just add a few curves here and there, move the text around, and they have an incredible livery. How do I even start? I mean, it keeps the KLM colours, but it modernises them a bit. It's the best example of that. Aerolíneas Argentinas, they went for a whole new design and came up with something amazing. KLM, they took their colours, which look quite nice, but I mean, in the modern times and when they were getting the 787, I actually found some renderings of the 787 with this livery, and it just looks awful. And in fact, the designer even said that it looks awful with that. So he said he said that when he was nominated to do that livery, he simply just added a few curves here and there, and moved the text around, and boom, he has an incredible livery. And he's the one that dubs it Dolphin Smile, because he thinks that it looks like a dolphin, and that's what I've always called it, because I agree with him. Just an incredible livery. I see it all the time because I see it on the Embraers. It looks good on almost every single aircraft, apart from the 777 and possibly the 747, although I've had kind of second thoughts about that now. It looks alright. But yeah, the best livery that's flying now. But yeah, not the best livery overall. Now, in first place, what do you think is the best livery of all time, in my opinion? I've already stated that it's an old livery. It's not one that's flying now, since KLM's the best livery that's flying now. What do you think it is? It's a big airline as well. Can you guess it there, or should I just tell you? It's British Airways' Landor scheme. Yeah, the best livery in the world that's ever existed, in my opinion. It's just the best livery. It looks the best on every single plane. And it looks incredibly professional. And it's combined with national pride and style. And it's just... I mean, what did it do? What did it do? Why do I think that this is the best livery in the world? Well, for a start, the Negus and Negus livery, they basically went and said, right, how are we going to make this more professional? Because at the time, British Airways, they were trying to have an updated image, because they were, at the time, they were seen as being, like, having really bad service and not really great cabin service or anything like that. I'm a bit like now then. Oh well, but yeah, they were trying to improve their image, so they brought in the Landor scheme, and with that, they essentially changed up the colours. They were the first airline really to bring silver or like grey into the industry as a professional airline livery. every airline livery now basically is grey on the fuselage, because British Airways did it successfully with the Landor livery. Asiana Airlines, American Airlines, Virgin, just all of those, and Air Canada as well, they're all livery. All of those liveries, the reason why they were grey was because they tried to be professional, like British Airways did with the Landor scheme. It also brought in the Speedbird, like this. It looks almost like an arrow thing, which I really, really like as well. And the blue, it's just perfect on every single plane. It comes up to the right level on every single plane, and the text as well. I mean, I believe the aircraft looks best on the 777, simply because this film from Just Planes Here of it taking off at Heathrow, just like the text and everything about it, it's just amazing. But yeah, like the tail as well. They didn't ruin the tail at all. I mean, that was one of the things which you would have thought they would have messed up on the Negus and Negus livery when they were trying to become more professional. They would abandon that, but they didn't. They kept it, but they brought their own style in. They have the dark blue. They just changed the top of it from that bright red colour of the Union flag, what it normally is, to just the dark blue which they had. They also brought in on that, like on the top bit of the tail there, they put the coat of arms as well, making it even more professional and representing Britain as the flag carrier with the coat of arms, the Union flag still on the tail, the massive British Airways text as an incredibly professional airline livery, which they got rid of so early. Early? Yeah, early. They got rid of it so early. And I have no idea why they got rid of it so early and replaced it with the world tails. That was the worst livery decision in the world. They went from the best livery to having the worst livery. Then they brought in the Chatham Historic Dockyard livery, which wasn't actually that good until they brought the coat of arms back on the livery, which was in like 2011 or 2012 or whenever it was. So why did they get rid of that so early? I have no idea. This livery could have been going until 2010 and then they could change it. In my opinion, that it would still look good. I mean, even now I would say it starts to look outdated simply because now you've got more curves on the aircraft. Like, it wouldn't look good on the Dreamliner really, and the new A350 when they get it, it wouldn't really look good on that. But every single other aircraft, at least every single aircraft that British Airways had, including Concorde as well, with Concorde, they adapted it to look incredible. Of course, they couldn't have the grey because at supersonic speeds, it would actually, just because the way that the heat is reflected, white does it best. That they still kept like that arrow. Like, it's actually called like the Speedbird logo thing. Like, everything's called Speedbird. I've actually just realised that that's also an adaptation of VOAC's like old what's that called? It's like a Speedbird thing, whatever that was called. Everything's Speedbird. That thing, like that triangle thing. It looked like that, I've just realised, which just makes it even better. So it's just the best livery, looks best on every single aircraft, including Concorde and everything. And yeah, it's just the most professional. It brought in, like, now, when an airline's also trying to be professional, they bring in dark colours as well. I mean, look what Virgin did. They brought in dark colours. It combines professionalism with looking good on every single plane, with national pride, and representing a flag carrier. It's the best livery in the world that's ever existed. So after that video, which is probably quite long, I've had to record this 3 times now because I always ramble on, and I kind of rambled on for the British Airways bit, but not really on anything else. That will be it for this video. Put down in the comments what you think the best livery is, whether you agree with my decisions here, whether you think that I'm completely wrong about the Air Canada livery being that you think is absolutely terrible, shouldn't even be on this list, or I don't know, you think that BMI's livery is too vibrant and is way too bad, or you don't like I don't know, like you don't like Vietnam Airlines livery. I don't know. Just put your opinions down in the comments. I'll try and reply to as many people as I can. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video if you decide to choose that one as well. Bye.